Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jared Cast.
So it begins.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yes. Beautiful. I quote that dude so much for 3 of us ever being there.
Yeah, man. I miss that guy. He should be a guest on this podcast.
He should. He really needs to be.
Yeah. Hello, folks of every persuasion. How you doing today? Good. Welcome to the Jared Cast. My name is Jared Ancanan, and with me is the lovely, talented Jared Lombardo. How you doing today, Jared?
I'm good. I'm tired. You're making me record in the morning again. But I'm doing good. I can't complain too much. How about you?
I'm good. I'm happy that I finally watched The Square because I've been putting it off for so many years. But I'm excited to talk about it.
I'm excited to hear about it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so we're talking about Palme d'Or winners, Palme d'Or, or I don't know how to do French, but the highest, most prestigious prize in the Cannes Film Festival goes to a very select few films since 1945. And today we're talking about 2 of them. The first being, as you heard, The Square from 2017. Yep. A film that kind of satirizes art culture, like art gallery culture and art museum culture. And then Bong Joon-ho's 2019 film, Parasite, which kind of took the world by storm and introduced a lot of people to Korean cinema and to the new Korean cinema movement, and eventually went on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture and for Best Foreign Language Film, which is crazy. Almost never happens. Never happens for South Korea.
Yeah, I don't think has it ever happened.
For a foreign movie to win Best Picture
and Best Foreign,
yeah, it's the first. Yeah,
okay.
And it was the first Korean movie to win the Palme d'Or as well, and I think The Square was only the second Swedish.
Okay.
Yeah,
Elite group of films we got here.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to talk about both. But first, since we're not doing a Christmas-related episode, we're going to do some Christmas-related lists and holiday-related lists. So today we're doing we're doing a fun one. What you got for us, Jared?
We've got top 5 Santas in TV and film. Specific Santas. And so you think Tim Allen nailed it, you might hear his name. You think Tom Hanks is a legend, you might hear his name. I'll never tell, you'll find out. Yeah, pretty simple top 5, but I struggled with it because I don't watch a ton of Christmas movies and I'm bad at thinking of Santas apparently. And so this was a tough one for me.
It's all good.
Since I struggled, why don't you start us off?
For sure. Yeah, I tried to focus my list on unconventional Santas because, there's a lot of them in movie history, and I like the ones that kind of subvert my expectations as soon as I see a Santa on screen. And I think the whole entire movie of Jingle All the Way does this, not just with the Santa scenes, but I love the Santa swarm that Arnold Schwarzenegger fights in the factory. That's my favorite shit ever. And that's my number 5. I love the Santa swarm. I think I think it's hilarious that they're just a bunch of average Joes trying to get through their day. and this like big foreign dude comes in and ruins everything, brings a bunch of violence onto their home court. Yeah, I love everything about Jingle All the Way. I love the way it's still, I think, the most honest Christmas movie about how everything is just stressful for adults, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think it's also the movie that showed George Lucas Jake Lloyd, because for some reason that kid became Anakin right after. Yeah. But yeah, the Santa Swarm in Jingle All the Way.
Nice. Fun fact, never seen it. So it's not on my list. So good pick. My number 5 is also a bit of a curveball. Not at all because I ran out of Santas that I actually like in film. But number 5, it's going to be familiar. Santa brings gifts, and what sweeter gift than the sweet release of death? So Ricky from Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 is my number 5 Santa.
I forgot about him. I forgot we could do horror too. That's awesome.
Yeah. I had to get one in there. Good episode. Go listen to it.
Yes. Great episode. My number 4 is Mall Santa from Bob's Burgers, played by the legendary Henry Winkler. I just love that Santa has to deal with the kids' bullshit, and he does it surprisingly well. When Louise asks him for a pet shark, he gives her a goldfish, and it ends up being sweet. But it's always fun to see, like a straight man play against that crazy family, and it's one of the reasons why I love that show so much.
Yeah, great pick. TV's kind of slipped my mind this top 5, and that probably would have made the cut. But what did make the cut for me, number 4, a movie that I'm kind of hit or miss on, but it's fun at the end of the day, and this person kills it in their titular role of Bad Santa. I'm talking Billy Bob Thornton. He's a legend. He's just great in everything, and so even if I have mixed feelings on this movie, he's good in it, and so he's my number 4 Santa.
Good pick. Yeah, I am also very mixed on it. I don't. I saw it once. I don't think I'll ever watch it again.
Yeah, same.
But it wasn't bad. Yeah. It was not bad.
It was just fine.
Yeah. My number 3 is so stupid. It's Paul Giamatti from Fred Claus, because he's literally just Paul Giamatti with a thicker beard, and it doesn't change anything about the typical Paul Giamatti role. But I love, again, seeing Santa Claus played as a straight man against a crazy person, and Vince Vaughn. It's not, Fred Claus is not a good movie. Let's be real, but it's still very charming, and I appreciate their relationship as brothers, even though they look nothing alike. And Paul Giamatti as Fred Claus, being sick of Vince Vaughn's shit, is my number 3.
Good pick. My number 3, I'm going classic Santas now. The rest of my list is all good old straight up Santa Clauses. Starting with maybe, at least for our generation, probably the most beloved Christmas movie. I feel like everybody worships the ground of this movie, but it's a great movie, and so I can't shit on it. I love this movie too, and that's Elf. I'm talking Ed Asner.
Yep.
He's just a wholesome little Santa. I never not smile when he's on screen, and he just sets up Buddy perfectly. And he's just a fantastic little Santa.
I agree. I almost picked for my list the fake Santa and the first fake Santa that he finds.
Oh,
You smell like beef and cheese. You don't smell like Santa.
damn! That actually would have been a better pick. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. I had to take out that guy though in favor of my number 2. My number 2 is also an iconic Santa for this generation. It's and for some reason the internet just keeps sexualizing him, and I don't like it, but it's still entertaining. Of course, I'm talking about Jim Carrey's The Grinch and Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
What an amazing performance, and like the just first of all the technical aspect of it, like that's an insane suit to wear for that many hours, and he still goes full Jim Carrey, like just sweating his balls off in the middle of that in the middle of those prosthetics, and it's a good performance. It sells the like everything that the cartoon did as well, did just as well.
Yeah. Great pick as well. My number 2. I zoned out for a second because I wrote down the wrong actor's name because this movie was remade and I didn't want the remake. I wanted the original, and so I'm gonna go with all the way back to 1947 with Edmund Gwynn from Miracle on 34th Street. It's a very wholesome movie.
Yeah.
It's just some good old family fun here. He does a great job playing another classic Santa. Doesn't step out the box. He's not murdering people like Ricky. Surprise, surprise. But he's a great Santa nonetheless.
Yep. I agree, and I've seen both versions of the movie, and they both like were very pleasantly surprising, like pleasantly surprisingly good. I remember the first time seeing the old one, and like I was like, wait, this is turning into a courtroom drama? What's going on? This is weird. But it ended up paying off really well. I loved it. Yeah. My number 1 is nothing like that. It's not nearly as wholesome, but it's also a little bit wholesome. I don't know, but it's probably the biggest curveball on my list. It's Michael Scott versus Phyllis Vance in The Office when they play competing Santa Clauses in The Office.
Very specific.
Yeah. So apparently Michael really, really wanted to be Santa, and also Phyllis really wanted to be Santa, and so they set up Santa chairs in opposite sides of the office and compete. And of course, Michael gets really, really petty and really, really selfish and has to learn his lesson. And yeah, it's really incredible, but like it still ends up being a really nice, wholesome Christmas episode by the end. And yeah, that's one of my favorites, for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, another one that slipped my mind in the TV world. But my number 1 is probably the most nostalgic on this list. Comes from one that I watched every year, and it's another cute, wholesome one, but this time animated. I'm talking the stop motion Christmas special Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Hell yeah.
And I'm talking Stan Francis. It's great. He's the best Santa, despite it just being a voice performance. I think as far as straight edge Santas, you can't top Stan, so don't even try.
Straight edge Santa. That's great.
Straight edge Santa.
Yeah, man. I agree. I need to rewatch that because it's been like over a decade since I've seen any of those old Rudolph stuff.
Yeah, my family watches it every year without fail. There's three movies that we watch without fail, and that's that, Elf, and Christmas Vacation.
Oh,
So
wow.
you get a nice little variety there.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I think we try to do a different one every year. I'm debating whether or not to show them Tokyo Godfathers, because there's some stuff in there that they definitely won't like, but it's so goddamn crazy that
Yeah.
I gotta show it to them. I don't know.
I still need to watch it. You've been recommending it for like a year and a half now, but I still haven't. I still haven't seen it.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great, and it's like the most. It's the most like straightforward Satoshi Kon movie, which is but it's still really interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to.
Faux show. But not today. Today we're talking about we're going to Korea with Parasite.
Short little trip we got here. You know who else took the trip? Take a guess.
Take a guess.
That's right. It's Movie Man 37911. In this installment of Jared reads poorly written reviews that movies that it's funny, it makes him laugh and stuff. He says 1 out of 10. Shameful that this won Best Picture. It shouldn't even be on IMDb's list of best movies. How did this win Best Picture? The ending was nothing special, and the storyline did not make any sense. Not a good film in general, and to think this won Best Picture? Travesty. I saw this and Cats 2019 in the same day, and Cats was way better. At least in Cats, it was visually entertaining. This doesn't have anything to show for. Would not recommend. Still don't know what the hype is about. Save yourself time and money and skip this film.
Damn. Cats? Really?
Cats. That's the bar.
Goodness gracious.
Cats
You know
should've
it's going to
won
be
Best
bad when they
Picture.
have... Yeah. Yeah. You know it's going to be bad when they have the word movie in their name. Already, this is going to be horrible.
It was tough skipping through all the racist ones to find this little gem, but I'm glad I did.
Yep. I can imagine that you ran into a lot of those.
Yeah. There was one that was just like, I don't like Korean movies. They don't make sense. that was
Damn. Yeah, man, it's weird. Like I remember reading like someone did an anonymous interview where not even an interview, they released to the Hollywood Reporter their own Academy poll and the reasons why they put the poll up there. And every single time Parasite came up, they were like, it's not American. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is someone in their 60s in the most like pat yourself on the back Democrat like area of California. They're just acting all dumb and shit. And you know, against expectations, possibly Bong Joon-ho's best movie, it took away the Palme d'Or and the Academy Award, and I think it was well deserved. I think it's one of those rare instances where you see Europe, Asia, and America all acknowledge the best picture. It almost never happens, and I really love this movie. It was really rewarding to watch, especially as a fan of Bong Joon-ho for a few years. I think my gateway was Snowpiercer, which we've reviewed already.
Yeah, same.
And then from there I watched The Host, and then Memories of Murder, and then the rest came later. Yeah, man, it's interesting, like, cause like you could see all of his techniques kind of and all of the stuff that he likes to do, all of it kind of comes together. All of the commentary that he's been kind of obsessed with, besides the vegetarian stuff, like it all comes together in the movie in a really cool way, and a really organic way. And the movie is a great gateway into Korean cinema for that. Yeah, I personally love it too. I've seen it multiple times, and watching it again, I was like, even when I wasn't taking notes, I was just still super captured by it. And so I will give it a, if it's not my personal, it may be my personal favorite Bong Joon-ho, I don't know, but it's definitely his most polished movie. And it's just so tight all the way through. All the characters are really, really interesting and some of them are really lovable. I'm going to give it a 9.6.
Yeah. I'm in full agreement. This was my third time watching it, maybe fourth.
Yeah.
And I've loved it every time. I don't randomly hate it after 3 times. I'm like, oh, never mind, fuck this movie. No, it's a fantastic movie. I think it's one of the better Best Picture winners in a while. Probably the same for the Palme d'Or. I don't remember what else has won pretty recently, besides The Square, when we were looking at the list. But yeah, I think it's super polished. The acting across the board is fantastic. Even down to the psychotic basement husband. Everybody kills it in this movie.
Yeah.
The commentary is clear and concise, and it doesn't get muddled at all. And just a great movie. The set pieces are great. The cinematography is pretty damn good too. All around, it's just an enjoyable movie. Very tightly written script. Movie's good when it can get batshit insane for like the last 20 minutes, and you don't question it, and you're like, yeah, hell yeah, and it's just a great time all around. I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10.
Nice.
Big fan of this one as well.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I love you, like, even just showing people this movie because of that twist in the basement. Because I love, because it happens a lot in his movies where they'll start out both a combination of tragedy and comedy. The one that comes to mind is actually Memories of Murder. Have you seen it?
No, I actually haven't seen that one.
Okay, so I won't give anything away, but like it's kind of like South Korea's equivalent of the Zodiac Killer.
Okay.
And at the time the killer was still, when he made the movie, the killer was still not caught. And so he made the movie like to directly like confront the killer. And so and like it starts out kind of mocking the cops who are doing it. Like there's a lot of slapstick, people jump in the air and kick people in the head, and it's so weird. I don't even understand the blocking, but then the movie gets real serious in the second half, and I love that about Parasite as well. Also starring Kang Sung-ho, basically Korea's De Niro. The guy can do anything, and I love him. I guess we could talk about tone first, like because that's something that Bong Joon-ho totally nails. I think in pretty much every single one of his movies, all the way from I've seen his features, and yeah, they all kind of do this. They are comedy and tragedy mixed, and you bounce back and forth freely, and it's very interesting the way he's able to do that. So like, what are your thoughts about Parasite in particular?
I love it. I think the tone is what makes this movie so memorable, and it helps the satire aspect of the script immensely, because you get to make fun of just the dynamic between like the 1% and the working class, and comedy's a great outlet for that. It always has been since people existed. Like, it's just the go-to. And
Yeah.
so you get to do that and play in that realm. But it's also a very serious topic. And so, like, taking it that serious, dark direction hammers it into your head. It makes for an exciting watch just on the surface level. Like, grabbing some popcorn and watching this movie is just a great time because of that.
Yeah.
And you also get more of the gravity of the situation. A scene that comes to mind isn't actually like the birthday party mass murder or the first reveal of the basement. The tone of the film completely switches. It's when the family escapes from the house and they go back and they see all the flooding, and the poorer of the community you get, the worse the flooding is. And then you get to their house and it's like all the way to the fucking ceiling. That's the point where it like fully sets in, at least for me. And you're like, oh fuck, like the stark contrast is so insane.
Yeah.
But we've spent so much time in this house and like cracking jokes and seeing smooth criminals con their way into the family, that you forget where they came from by that point.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes for an incredible tone shift there as well. And so I think it's a incredibly effective use of tone and switching that up.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I'm sure we'll get back to that scene as well because it's such a great sequence, even just building to it, and like, oh, they're still going. Oh my god, how far is this place?
There's a lot of stairs in Korea. Holy shit!
Yeah, man. The scene that comes to mind for me is the weird role playing hand job scene. Because you got the two, you got Mom and Papa Park. I'm not gonna try to pronounce their first names, but so the film deals with the Parks and the Kims. The Kims are this poor family trying to work their way up into the Parks' life and slowly find jobs at their house. And so the Parks, while the Kims are hiding underneath the coffee table, start playing this weird role playing thing where they in their own ignorance about like lower class and about criminals, start playing this thing of like, hey, you want to can you give me some drugs? And like
she's just moaning, buy me drugs.
Buy me drugs. Yeah. And the Kims are like really trying to like not say anything when they're hiding underneath the coffee table, and it's so gross and so uncomfortable. And it's like really funny too. But then there's also this more serious thing which gets into the class themes. Like the Parks really have no idea what they're talking about when like all of it is kind of born from this place of ignorance, Mm-hmm. They make all these assumptions about people who are less fortunate than them, and they freely play with it because of their ignorance and because they live in a completely different world than the Kims do.
And it's super well done through and through. I think another point of that is just like the Park smelling poverty throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Is just crazy.
Yeah, and like that they always kind of cut to the same not the same, but like they always cut to a close up of Mr. Kim, the driver, the dad of the Kim family, and he always kind of makes this face like, this motherfucker, like reducing me to a smell. And finally, when he decides to kill Mr. Park, it's always a little bit off center, or it's through a window, or it's from a profile. But when he decides to kill Mr. Park, it's like his face is dead center,
dead on,
and it's fucking great, man. I love the way that Bong Joon-ho builds towards something like that, towards a really awesome moment like that. You mentioned the cinematography being super polished. Were there any like particular shots or particular scenes that you loved?
I think this movie does tracking shots real well. And I mentioned there's the moment when Mama Kim goes down the stairs into the basement for the first time, and the mood of the film switches entirely, just from like a lighting cue and a tracking shot. And it's moments like that that are incredibly effective, because of just that slow, deliberate, like Fincher-esque type movement. And it just works super well. I don't think the cinematography, I'm not leaving going like the cinematography in this is like the highlight of the film. Because I don't think it is, but I don't think it's supposed to be. Like, if you leave thinking
Right.
only about the cinematography, you must have watched a different movie, because it's not on your mind after finishing this. And so I think it's incredibly effective, having mostly static, and when it does move, it's not a lot of handheld, until kind of shit hits the fan. And I think it works super well. It's effective. It's effective visual storytelling.
I agree. Yeah, I appreciate that it's not a very flashy cinematographic style. But I did notice that in a lot of his movies, Bong Joon-ho really loves to use the profile to emphasize choice. Tony Zhou does a whole entire episode about it just from Snowpiercer, and the way that they use it for Chris Evans' character. Yeah, I love the way they use the profiles in this one, both to highlight both to kind of hide what a character is thinking, or like show a character's choice. And then he also has those kind of dead-on close-ups that really hit really well. And yeah, I also love the tracking shots, especially when they're going down into the basement. It's super for I think a lesser filmmaker would have gone handheld for it, and he did not. It's like it's like you're basically riding a cable car down into hell. And I love that shot so much when he's just going down the stairs, and that's the moment in the movie where you're like, oh shit,
Yeah, for real.
there's more to the movie. Oh, and it was right under your nose the entire time. Like the way they kind of hint at it with the housekeeper, like she always eats for two. Yeah, I love it. And then the other cinematographic thing that stuck out to me was the wide shots and with the different families. With the Parks when they're kind of together, which is rare. But when they're together, it's a very shallow lens and very like they're all in kind of different parts of the frame. But when the Kims are together, they're a lot more united, and so they have, so the frame is a lot, or the lens has a little bit more depth, and they're also kind of staged in a way that looks like I'm thinking of the scene when they're kind of like eating all their snacks together as a family.
That's what the scene that came to mind for me too.
Yeah, like it's really brilliantly blocked, and and you can, and it's a great way to see like, okay, all these characters are on the same page versus the Parks who almost never are. Yeah.
It's the blocking in this movie is fantastic. It's such a simple thing that's easily overlooked. But like when they're getting drunk in the living room and stuff, just the position of everybody, it says a lot about their characters. And so it's a fantastically directed movie. And I think that adds to the polished nature that we've been praising for this film.
Hell yeah. Even the little like trickery scenes, like when the fridge opens up while she's talking about the birthday cake. So good. Yeah. Like I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. Yeah. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're already kind of on it, but what did you? So this story is, on top of being like a satire about capitalism and all that stuff, like uh, at its core, it's a tale of two families, and it like I think they're given very common Korean names because of that, like so that everyone can like there are a million Parks and there are a million Kims,
Yeah.
and so like what did you think about that aspect of the movie of like the two families versus each other?
I think it works super well. You really don't see much unification of the Parks, like the siblings versus the siblings of the Kims, for example. Like the Park siblings are against each other. She's always like, "Oh, he's pretending, he's faking," and then you see the Kims, and they're like working together. They're like unifying, and so I think the dynamics of that also point back to like the poverty struggle theme of the movie, where the Kims just have more to fight for, so they can't afford to argue with each other or really be at each other's throats because they don't got time for that. They have to eat, and so
Right.
they don't get the luxury of kind of being against each other. And you see the same thing with the father and wife duos of each family. Repeatedly, Kim asks Park, "Oh, you love your wife, right?" Like, "Yeah, you love your wife," and he never answers. He never says yes. And so you just don't feel the connection between the family of the Parks as you do the Kims. And it makes you root for the Kims too. It's also a device to get you on the correct side for this movie, and root for the protagonist. But it adds a lot to the poverty struggle theme. It adds a lot to like the capital theme, the us versus them in general, and it's executed well. I think the family dynamics in this movie play well with the rest of the film.
I agree. I agree. And it's interesting too because there are moments where the Kims are 100% in the wrong. Like it doesn't matter what
Yeah.
like their situation is, like they should not be doing some of the stuff that they're doing.
They're still murderous criminals trying to steal identities in a family's house. Like,
Yeah. And it's but you fall in love with them because of exactly what you described, and it's just Bong Joon-ho, man. He's just that great. What else? What else? There's a lot of symbols in the movie, like the rocks, the weird like rock art piece and the stairs,
the Scholar Rock.
There you go. The stairs, the ramdon pot, noodle bowl. What symbols like kind of stick out to you when you just like when you think about Parasite? What do you think about?
I mean, the rock comes immediately to mind because it's probably the most blatant, because they literally say, "Hey, this rock will bring you wealth." And you're like, okay. And then eventually there's like attempted murders with it, and like the pursuit of wealth. It's the downfall of them. And so it's a little heavy handed.
Would you say that they hit you over the head with it?
They really hit you over the head. And so like that's the most obvious. So when I think Parasite symbols, I probably think that. It's there. One that kind of confuses me, and so I'm curious to see if you found any extra meaning, is the plum juice. It's a slightly recurring thing, but the fact that they make a point of basement guy chugging a whole thing of it and then it mixing with the blood of the family, like it's so close to there being something there, but I don't know what they're trying to say with it, or if they're trying to say anything at all. Was that one that came to you at all?
It did, but I forgot to look it up. It probably has more significance for a Korean audience.
Yeah.
And I'm sure whoever would Google it would find something good. We could do that now.
Magic of editing.
Plum juice, Korea. It is plum extract.
Yeah.
Mildly tangy, sweet.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't help me.
Plum extract is a metaphor for tanginess.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that did not come up in my stuff,
Yeah.
but it's. I'm gonna look for it now. But
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's probably like a wealthy person beverage. I don't see a lot of common people drinking fresh plum extract every day. So it probably has something to do with the capitalism aspect of this film, but
maybe
it was one that kind of just slipped through the fingers for me.
yeah, that might be it actually, because like most of this plum juice that's coming up in my search is like stuff that's been pre-bottled, and so maybe the fact that it's like fresh makes it extra expensive and makes it extra. Yeah, I don't know.
What's other symbols jumped out to you though?
The stairs. The stairs is the biggest one for me. You know, the movie is all about high and low and above and below and stuff like that, and so and so you have the stairs leading down to the basement where the parasite of the parasites, where he lives. You got people. You got the Kim's home, which is going past all these stairs in the city, and then like like even the toilet is like cramped in the corner of the room, like it's very high in the most uncomfortable position possible. And you know, the Kim's daughter, she eavesdrops on the family from the stairs. She eavesdrops on the Parks from the stairs, and that's how they are able to get the housekeeper's job. You know, it's used constantly in the blocking. It's used constantly in the in the cinematography and in the editing to illustrate like not just class dynamics but power dynamics. And so every time someone is in control, they're above the other person, and and you know, normally it would feel like it was on the nose, and it would feel kind of. I think again, a lesser director would have been very careless with that choice, but with Bong Joon-ho, you know, it because you're so familiar with the geography of every single location, it really doesn't matter. Like you feel it. It just feels like you're in that world, and like it doesn't really. It didn't even occur to me. The symbol of stairs until my second viewing.
Yeah, that's also one of my favorites. It's The Rock stood out more to me, but the stairs I like more because it's so simple and it's so well executed every single time it's there, and so it's delightful. I love a good stair symbol.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to make ramdon with sirloin steak?
No, I'm not that bougie yet.
I kind of want to try it, even though the movie's like, "Don't do this. This is wasteful."
Yeah, I think Babish has a recipe on it from Parasite.
Oh,
if
nice.
I remember right.
Nice. I'm sure he goes into the symbolism for that too, like the mixing of
probably
a cheap ingredient or expensive ingredient.
Yeah.
That's a good one too. Yeah, great symbolism in the movie. Is there anything you didn't like about Parasite that you kind of can do without, or like could adjust?
The ending is kind of weird to me. Like, I go back and forth. The first time I watched it, loved it. Second the time, I liked it. The like third, I was like, and then like fourth, I was like, okay, I like it. And so it's kind of back and forth a little bit for me.
Why?
I think they rush they get a little lazy-ish with the voiceover, and it's not like something that is used in the film at all before. It is kind of a new age Korean cinema technique to have like, okay, this voiceover is going to wrap it up. The Handmaiden does the same thing quite a bit. And so I get it. And it does jump a lot of time in a short amount of time. And so you need it. And it's already kind of a long movie. So I get why they do it. It just feels like a bit of departure in style. And I feel like you could have done it a little smoother and a little more true to the style of the movie and the tone of the movie that we've seen up until this point.
Yeah. Voiceover's tricky because like it's like you said, you gotta establish something like that. But I think for me, the way I kind of took it was like I didn't even mind that it was voiceover at all. What I know the entire ending isn't this, but the very last bit of it is where he's reading the letter that his father wrote, and to me that was like a kind of like a bookend of his relationship with of the son, the Kim's son's relationship to his father. Because he's the one writing the script for his dad to blend in with the rich people. And so, and the movie ends with the father like giving him a script for his life and kind of giving him like instructions on how to keep going and stuff. And so that's kind of how I did it. But like, it's still pretty like, yeah, like you said, like
it's just a bit of a departure from everything we've been watching,
right? Especially after that like montage when they're framing the housekeeper, like, which is so cinematic and so great, and then you get the ending where it's like just voiceover. I agree. For me, I think the Park's son isn't as great, and I think
I really don't care about Da Sung at all.
Which is weird because with the host, Bong Joon-ho does a really good job with child actors. Same with Parasite, or not Parasite, Snowpiercer. So I thought it was interesting that the kid's not really used as much as the rest of the characters, especially because he's like at the focal point of a lot of the conflict and a lot of the hijinks.
The love story between the other two children is real weird to me too. I don't think it's necessary at all. And obviously it's going to be a little cringy because she's early high school and he's allegedly about college age. And so like, I know age of consent's different, but like it's just weird to see in general. And I don't think it's needed for the plot at all. I don't think I really get anything out of them having a romantic relationship. And so I just think it's a weird inclusion.
Yeah. I wonder, I think, the son loves to, is the big dreamer of the group. And I think that kind of, so it makes sense for his character. I don't think they needed to kiss.
That much.
Yeah. But yeah. I agree. Cool. So symbolism, families. Sorry, folks. I'm going without notes on this one because I'm a busy boy. But so symbolism, families, stuff. The capitalism thing. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about capitalism a bit.
Yeah. It's something that Bong Joon-ho has addressed before, both
Couple times.
couple times, showing a working class family suffering because of a monster in the host, showing a whole train car full of people suffering in Snowpiercer, and now showing the kind of crazy social dynamic between two like pretty normal families, and just showing them living in completely different worlds, and showing them think in completely different processes. There's the how do I say it? There's an adversarial aspect to the relationship between the two families, but at the same time, with the title Parasite, right? The parasite needs the host to survive, and needs the host.
Yeah.
And so and so this theme of satirizing the kind of very strict capitalist economy of South Korea is very, very it's the theme that's been resonating a lot with Americans, with American audiences, especially since the movie came out.
Yeah, I think that's why it did so well in America. Also, one of my favorite things about this movie is that Elon Musk tweeted it was his favorite film of that year. Great, fantastic, just on par.
Good taste, Elon.
Yeah. Everybody would retweet that Garfield meme where it's like, oh, wonder who that's for. But it's I think it's what makes this movie so accessible here in America, especially. It's the perfect timing for this movie to come out here, as well as Korea. And so
Do you have another screaming naked yoga man?
no, that's one of the roommates here. I don't know if you heard a dog howling yesterday when we recorded.
No.
Well, it was him, not the dogs. Loud man. But capitalism, eh? Yeah, I think it's I touched on a lot of the stuff I like about the execution of the capitalism satire already, so I'll keep that minimum. But I think it's why the movie did so well here. But I also think that the film it satirizes both sides too. And this is something we see in the Square, so I'm sure we'll continue this discussion soon. But all the like impoverished people that we get attached to, or that we are really introduced to, are fucking psychotic. Like they're all crazy, and so it kind of undermines itself a bit, but it also it doesn't muddle the like thesis that the film has either. And so it's a weird balance between the two as well.
Yeah. But I kind of like that about it. If the movie was just kind of preaching anti-capitalist themes, I would like it less, even though I'm not I don't have a particularly personally, I don't know how to feel about any economic system, I mean, because they all sound good on paper. And then you introduce humans into it, and it all goes to shit no matter what.
Yeah,
yeah, and I think I think Parasite does that beautifully, actually. because of these very human motivations and these very human, you know, even the guy in the basement, like he's a crazy person, but he's deeply in debt. He was part of a real financial. He was, you know, the movie makes a lot of allusions to real financial crises that happened in South Korea, and these people who the Kims and the people in the basement are all suffering because of that. And you know, I think it's not really Bong Joon-ho's job, even though he has been very critical of capitalism in general and of corporate greed. You know, I don't think it's his job to make like a particularly solid statement. What I think Parasite does beautifully is get us to look at the nature of human beings as parasites, and I think and I think that's what keeps the movie fresh for me and keeps it still nice and spicy.
Agreed. Spicy like a good ram, though.
Shall we do favorite scenes?
Let's do favorite scenes.
What are yours?
I mentioned them traveling back to the house during the flood. That's up there. The birthday party massacre is also up there, just because it's such a what the fuck moment.
Yeah. Fucking skewer sticking out of him.
Yeah. The dog eating it later is insane.
Yeah.
I really like the power dynamic switches that happen when the old housekeeper has like the blackmail on the family. Just the way that like she's initially framed kind of like at a low angle, and then the flipping that on its head when they're exploiting the house, and it all goes to shit there.
So good.
It's just beautifully executed through and through. And then also the initial reveal of the basement's good too, but we already praised that. And then I'll also give a shout out to the pizza box scene when the original boss comes up to them and is like, hey, all of these fucking suck. And you see like the beginning of their like motivation to swindle their way into jobs, and like kind of the cunning tongue that the son has and his ability to weasel his way in. And you just see the con man aspect of the film kind of start rolling. And I think it's just great character introduction and development of that motive. And I think it's super well executed. And then also the fumigation is fantastic. So a lot of favorite scenes, pretty much the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, no, the movie's so freaking good that I could come up with as many and still have completely different ones, like the montage of them framing the housekeeper, like the way it jumps back and forth in time between them reciting the lines and like showing the hot sauce on the pizza and showing the hot sauce on the napkin and then the hot sauce again in the trash can, and the way the shots use slow motion, like when she's blowing the dust off the peach, and
beautiful shot.
It's such a good shot. And also the slow motion of him kind of really selling the sad face and the napkin raising out of the trash can. and the slow motion shot of the Park's mother walking up the stairs, and her kind of slowly seeing you slowly see the shock on her face develop. By the way, I besides Kang Sung-ho, I think she's my favorite performer because she's so like fucking dumb, but but still relatable. You know, even as a dumb rich person, as a dumb ignorant rich person, like I still resonate with her. You know, because she just wants what's best for her kids, even though she's an idiot.
Her introduction of being like passed out drunk at the backyard is fantastic too.
Yeah. When the housekeeper like cuts the
Just collapse.
So good. Yeah, there's that one. There's that montage. There's the flooding in the streets. There's the
streets of London.
There's the when he has to dress up as an Indian and is hiding behind the bushes with Mr. Park. Love that scene.
This is part of your job.
Yeah, man. I was like, oof. Oh. Murder is wrong, but like I get it. Yeah. Yeah, man, there's so many good ones to choose from. Even just the beginning, showing the socks in the window and showing the socks at the end again. Yeah, amazing film. Anything else you want to say about it?
No, I think we covered it.
Cool.
Ray talk about a lot of the same themes.
Sure.
These movies actually paired real well together.
Yeah.
Both touching on a lot of the same. But you know who touched on this movie? Rodrigo Alderente, who in this segment of Jared reads poorly written reviews of movies they're watching because it's funny and it makes them laugh and stuff.
So
gave it a
enthusiastic.
1 out of 10. They said, in the style of Holy Motors. No plot. I'm sorry, intellectual folks. I know this movie does not a plot. It is an art movie. I get it. This is actually a documentary, a non-fiction film without story, nothing more. I don't speak French, so I have to stick my eyes on the subtitles. This film is so shallow. The most annoying part is the man playing a gorilla at a dinner party. That was awkward. A strong scene, I admit. The art is for enjoy. Eliminate prejudice and boundaries. This movie is not any of it.
Well, first of all, there are 2 plots. So
There's jokes on you, Rodrigo.
oh man, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And it's also not in
s-
French.
Yeah, once I saw that I don't speak French, I was like, well, that's my pick.
So stupid.
It's great.
Yeah.
So this plotless movie called The Square, 2017 Swedish film by Ruben Östlund, of fame from, why can't I remember the last
Force
movie he
Majeure.
made? Yeah, Force Majeure, which I have not seen actually, but I've heard real good things. It stars Klaus Bang and Elizabeth Moss as the voice of reason throughout this film, and it parodies a lot of things. It parodies obviously high art culture and art in general, and the idea of what is art. And that's kind of the big circle. But then within that, you get like the hypocrisy of mankind and men in general. You get capitalism. You get like mistreatment of the less fortunate and the poorer than the highest of the high class. And you get a lot of things. It plays like a series of connected short films in a way that all satirize something or another. And I love it. I think it's a great execution. I admit that it has kind of that Lobster-esque sense of humor where it's like real niche. And so if you're on board, you're on board. But if you're not, you're going to have a bad time.
Right.
It is not without flaw. I think it's too long and a little bloated.
Yeah.
There is a lot of muddling of the themes that they want to see. But on the flip side, there's a lot of fantastic executions, like going from an interview where this person's like, oh, our biggest struggle is we just don't have any money. We're so poor. Cutting to a homeless person and then cutting to them getting a $50 million grant from old people. Like it's very heavy-handed in its satire, but it's so weird and like kind of just out there and intense that I like the execution. I admit its flaws though. I give it a 7.6 out of 10.
Yeah, I mostly agree. Like I think one thing that the director carried over from, Force Majeure was his kind of like was him kind of pointing a finger at masculinity and the way it's perceived in Europe. I don't know if you know the premise of Force Majeure.
Not really, no.
Do you
I've
mind
only
if
heard, yeah, you can say. I've only ever heard like, oh, that movie's real good, and that's all I've ever heard about it.
So in the movie, this guy and his family are on a skiing trip, and they see an avalanche coming towards them, and the guy just runs. He doesn't go back for his family. He just runs, and the avalanche ends up being nothing. So he's got to deal with his family after, like abandoning them to die. And so the movie kind of takes a man similarly, like someone who, is in a position of power and is a father, and is very and is sexually appealing, but pokes holes in him for 2.5 hours and just attacks his identity. I love that aspect of it. I love the satirization of art museum culture. Especially in the first 15 minutes, every single shot feels like a performance art piece because because the subject is always in the center frame, and there's always something weird happening in the background or something off happening in the atmosphere, and so I really appreciate this movie, and I appreciate everything that it did. I don't know if I would have given it the Palme d'Or over the other nominees. What were they again?
There were a lot of pretty decent ones. The Beguiled, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Okja, Bong Joon-ho was nominated. Good Time, which actually might have been my pick, if I'm being honest. And then You Were Never Really Here. And then there's the Palme d'Or nominees. There's like 30 of them. Like they nominate like crazy. But those were the ones that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I think Good Time, Killing of a Sacred Deer, and You Were Never Really Here would all be better choices. But I still really enjoyed this movie. I'm going to give it a 7.9. I think, it's way too bloated. Like it should be 20 minutes shorter. And
if you had it be 2 hours, you're good. You got a great film right there.
Right. Yeah. And the movie kind of, I wonder about the structure too. Cause like I think ending it on the dinner would have been so much more powerful. On the dinner scene. I don't know, but like that I could be totally wrong. But like for me, I almost like checked out after. I was like, how do you even go from there? from such a balls to the wall crazy, like that's like it's brilliant cinema, that scene. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But I do like the main character a lot. I like his two separate journeys, both as art director and as just a man. And for the most part, it works for me. And the design is also very, very good. The extras are used very heavily, and they're very convincing as art people. And I think they actually used real VIPs from Sweden.
I think so.
But I'm not entirely sure. But it's very, very good, and I definitely want to give it another shot. And I don't know why I put it off for so long, because this is kind of right up my alley. I like it a lot. Those are my thoughts.
We can dive into the art culture satirization, because I feel like that's kind of the overarching thing with this. It's this film bites off a little more than it can chew in the stuff that it tries to make fun of and talk about and parody. But one thing that they nail is high art society and making fun of that. You get it immediately, which kind of kicks off one of the main plots. We mentioned that there were two plots. One of them is Klaus or Christian getting his phone and wallet and keys and everything stolen because he thinks he's in a performance art piece when he's getting robbed. Like, he just takes it as like, oh, this is performance art. Hey. And that's hilarious. It's such a good way to like kick off a plot. And you get a lot of cool vignettes that parody art culture super well. One of my favorites is probably the removal of an old statue that like clearly is like such a piece of art, and they fucking drop it and break it, and then they just put a big square in the ground. They're like, art. And it's just so good because the disposal of like traditional art for just like patting ourselves on the back for saying that we are good people and helping out the less fortunate while blatantly ignoring the less fortunate and kind of just jerking ourselves off to do it is great. And I love that about this film. It hits that perfectly. And like that's what I hate about art. Even as an artist, I hate that like it comes down to just that essence. Like we've just given up what makes like original traditional art for, hey, look at me. It's all about me. The Bo Burnham sketch where he's like, in short, me. And it's just become that. And I think that this movie hits that perfectly through a lot of little vignettes and shorts. The sweeper going between the piles of ash is another good one. The people peeking in the room and immediately leaving in that same room is fantastic. But what were some of your favorite vignettes, and how do you think they handled making fun of art snobs?
Oh man, I swear, like, I don't think I've ever laughed harder at like 2 a.m. than when the little girl exploded on camera. That's so good. That's so good. I was like, why do people hate this? This is awesome.
Yeah. Every single bad review was like, I don't get how this is a comedy. I'm like, that's hilarious. The Tourette scene is like darkly hilarious.
Scene, I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Like it's such a funny movie. I don't get why it's
Oh man, that was great.
Yeah.
There's a whole South Park episode about a character faking that he has Tourette's just so that he can say racist things.
It feels like a South Park thing.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about that now.
You're good.
Yeah, the Tourette scene is very good at that. Kind of. Again, like I talked about this with the last movie, but like taking an idea and just throwing real people into it and real humans into it. And I think the director's this is a very impressive effort on his part doing that, because, you know, we don't really know a whole lot about these characters except for the main character. I don't know anything about Dominic West's character except like,
no,
I immediately get like
an intern that's abused.
Yeah. No, the snooty artist in the Tourette scene.
Oh, yeah. I thought Dominic played Julian, the intern. No, because I think his name is also Dominic.
Maybe, but yeah, that scene is great. I love the what was I gonna say? I also love the scene with tearing down the statue and like like them having to constantly explain what the square means.
Yeah.
Because it's such a stupid like idea.
Yup.
But I think that's also like a really smart thing for the movie, because this when they're talking about the square, they're not just talking about the square as the art piece, they're talking about the square as the film itself, and so it has that meta
Yeah.
quality to it, and I love that about the script and about the movie, because we see throughout the thing, like, nobody is treated like an equal, nobody is treated
No.
with what's the phrase, the slogan for
Oh.
the square?
The square, when we're all in the square, we're all equal. Or, I'll try to find the exact phrasing.
It's on the Wikipedia. I'll look it up. The square is a sanctuary of trust and caring. Within it, we all share equal rights and obligations.
Yeah.
And in the film The Square, that's the opposite of what happens in the plot, in both plots. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Them having to like explain the square and only using that phrase and not being able to like actually say anything about it is just fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's a good transition to the poverty and the mistreatment of those lesser than the 1%, because it nails that as well. There's a lot that come to mind, like when he denies giving a homeless man money and then asks him to do a favor without giving him anything in return at the mall.
Yeah.
Is fantastic. The homeless lady who's at the fast food chain is like, no onions, is a hilarious bit. It's also fantastic. But like that one stands out because the juxtaposition between that and the next scene where it's like the loudest, sweatiest, most like extravagant nightclub party you've ever seen the oldest people in the world go to, is fantastic. Like, even when he helps out a tiny bit, he feels the need to just have this self-aggrandizing party afterwards, and it's insane. So I think the film does a good job, like, satirizing, like, hey, we like to think that we help and that we do our part and we tell people that we do, but like at the end of the day we don't. We just walk by the less fortunate every single day without helping at all. But really the epitome of it is the plot line with the stolen wallet and the thief accusation of the most intense child you ever see. But what do you think about that aspect of it?
Yeah, there's that aspect of it was really, really cool, and I think one of the indisposable parts of the movie, because it's happening right outside the museum. And that same museum has an art exhibit that says "You have nothing" in neon, and then piles of gravel, and then they have to like actually use employee labor to recover the gravel when it accidentally gets swept up. That's so stupid. Like with the kid, it was great. I like that they kind of play with like setting that up with the main character and with Julian, like about like manliness and doing and like like owning up to your actions and like, you know, cowardice and, you know, sending someone else to do your dirty work. I think that plays out beautifully in that plot line with the wallet. And just the juxtaposition of him and the kid. You know, this kid is going completely out of his way. He's bold. He's in a place where he doesn't belong, but he has no fear. And our main character is the exact opposite. He's like a nervous little shit when he's just in an apartment building. Yeah, it's interesting, and and I really appreciated that they took it that far.
Yeah. And even when he's in that apartment building, he's trying to pawn it off to the intern to like do it for him. And that's just fantastic how much of a sniveling little bitch he is. But also like that scene in the apartment is so intense, and the way he manipulates the audience, because you're like kind of on his side at first when you're like not really thinking about it at all. And this is a common thing in a lot of scenes. They'll like start it out, they're like, here's the premise of this scene, and then they'll take it way too far and make everything uncomfortable. That's just the structure of almost every scene in this movie. But the apartment scene works well with that, because like you have the Tesla of Justice part where they're like blasting Genesis by Justice, and you're like, fuck yeah, like we're gonna go fuck some thieves up. And then they get in there and you're like, oh, this is real fucked up to do to like a whole apartment group, a whole apartment building of people. Like dogs are barking, the lighting changes are intense. The intern sitting in the car being like chastised by outsiders. You're like, this is fucked up. Like this is intense. And it's so anxiety inducing in the best way. It's like just turns into a horror movie out of nowhere. It's so good. I love it. Did you want to comment on that scene structure where they like start out soft with a premise and then they just build and make you uncomfortable? I didn't mean for that to be a talking point, but here we are, so I might as well run it. Yeah,
I mean, in the relationship between him and the journalist, starts out kind of sweet with them meeting in the bathroom and being kind of awkward with each other, and then like the sex scene's very uncomfortably shot, with like dead on looks at both of them, dead on close-ups on both of them. But then like there's that weird thing at the end where he's like kind of holding his condom like his sperm is some sort of treasure, like like she's gonna steal it because he's so great and so powerful. Like, oh my god, dude, what's wrong with you?
It's one of my favorite sex scenes in any movie, because one, the way it's shot is just like real. Like that's just how sex is.
Right.
It's not like gonna be this big glamorous thing. It's just two sweaty grown-ass adults trying to come. Like that's it. And like so the way it ends where she's like, oh, like you came, and he's like, yeah, that was great. And she's like, yeah. But the cum thief part of it is you get so much of Christian in that scene that it like it's so good. I love it. Because like at first you're like, is she? And then you're like, no, why would anybody want to do that at all in any way? And it makes for, it talks about like the masculinity aspects of this movie, and makes the reveal that Christian's a father this whole time that much better. But we can segue that into their relationship and masculinity, and kind of that abuse of power aspect of the film. This film talks about too much, like to its probably detriment, but it does a good enough job with a lot of it where it's like, okay, I get what you're going for. But masculinity, you want to start us off there, or what were you saying?
I'm wondering, because this just occurred to me. Like, do you think it's overstuffed on purpose because The Square as a film is also like a performance art piece, making fun of performance art pieces? I think so too.
I think a lot of the film comes down to the line that he says. He's like, if I put your handbag in a corner over there, is it art? And so the film's also kind of trying to do that. It's like, if I show you this on a big screen, does that make it art? Is there some message in here? Like you decide. And so I do think that that's a big part of it. I do think it was like purposely bloated, and some scenes that feel pointless are thrown in just because they can be. Really. Like the monkey scene where the one with the poster, like it's you see this dude just in the art exhibits, like staring you down a lot. And there's a lot of build up to that dinner scene. But like really, it has nothing to do with any of the plot. Like it's not, that's not the reason that he resigns. It's because of the PR campaign. Like that scene is so isolated and has nothing to do with anything. But it's there, and it's a fantastic scene.
Yeah,
So I do think there is a lot of that purposeful bloat in the film.
Right. I agree. And your question was about the masculinity themes and stuff?
Yeah. How do you think they handled it? Was it as strong as like the art society satire? What do you think?
I think the fatherhood thing, like it felt inconsequential, like, and which is unfortunate because like there is a good scene like when he's watching his daughter do the cheer inside of a square, and like he's genuinely into it and he's really involved, and it's and it's a really and it actually is what the square is supposed to be, right? These cheerleaders are equal and they're all playing a role and they're all fulfilling their obligations to each other. But other than that, like his kind of status as a father and his status as an ex-husband is kind of half-baked. But him in the workplace, I think, is done really well. I think, seeing Christian kind of blunder and also take charge and also like do these interesting things. I think it's really good. The old guy, I don't know what his position is, but he's kind of like he's like a marketing director, and he has his just baby like on like in one hand.
He's just like holding it by like the neck.
Yeah, like he's not even like
yeah.
Like it is interesting that that they show a father, like it's or a grandfather, I don't know what he is, taking care of a baby in the workplace instead of a woman, but the fact that he's like not even giving it a second look or the time of day is so funny to me. Like and they don't even mention the baby at all in the scene.
The best cut to that baby though is when the PR people pitch blowing up a child in the square, and then after that conversation they just cut to the child in the corner, and then they go to the next scene.
I didn't even notice that. That's great.
It's so good. It's just this little blonde baby just sitting there listening to it.
Yeah. Yeah, they do a good job of that. They do a good job of showing a man as a wild animal. And I think that's kind of where that dinner scene shines, is it's not just something about class. It's not just something about art in general. It's something about like, I'm going to take out the alphas, like, and I'm going to force them to sit down or leave the room. And what are you going to do about it? How far do I have to go before you stop me? That's that I think that's where the theme of masculinity, and I think all the themes in the movie shine most brightly in that scene.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the masculinity aspect of this movie is one of there's like the three major themes of like poverty, art, culture, masculinity / power. And of those three, I think the masculinity and power aspect gets the least amount of shine. You do get moments like we've been talking about, and also Elizabeth Moss's character being like, you use your position of power to conquest women, and like making him admit that. He's like, you do, like that's what you do. And I think that's another great scene that does it. And so there are flashes in the pan of great moments that say what the director wants to say. It's just a wild ride of a film. I know you're probably short on time now, so we could do favorite scenes if you want.
Sure. Unless you have like I can probably leave it in 10 minutes. Like I can if you have another thing that you want to talk about before favorite scenes.
Not really, because I feel like the favorite scenes we'll probably want to go in depth on a couple of them, so we can start that off, and if things arise, they arise.
Cool. Yeah, I mean the verbal fight between him and the kid in the stairwell, I think was really intense and really funny, but also like holy shit, it ended that way.
That kid kills it in this movie. Like I don't know who he is or where he came from, but he's fantastic. He's a little firecracker.
It's the perfect blend of annoying and yeah, go kid. um, there's that. There's watching the video. I think. Oh, another thing that was kind of half baked for me was the thing about like censorship and like the artist's role and stuff like that. Like when they were talking about it in the press conference, I didn't really. That was one more negative. I thought it was kind of forced. But the Tourette's scene is one of my favorites as well. I forget when it is in the movie, but when they're just dancing, and they're all just
that's right after he buys the sandwich for the poor woman.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because they're just like celebrating that he did one nice thing for somebody.
Right. Yeah. Like it's. I love watching Europeans go crazy over the most basic beat. Just lose their minds over.
Behind Christian, it's the oldest group of people you've ever seen. Too.
Yeah, it's great. And then of course the dinner with the wild animal was, I think is the best scene in the movie in my opinion.
Yeah, literally the first thing I did leaving the theater, because I think I said I double featured this with Lady Bird, which is a weird double feature. But the first thing I did walking out was look up who played the ape man.
Yeah,
because he was just so good. Why does he play a monkey so well?
Right.
Yeah, that scene is crazy intense, and it starts off as like such a little like joke, like you are in the seat with the people. You're not taking the perspective of Oleg. You're taking this perspective of the audience watching him, and so like at first you're like kind of laughing. You're like, oh, this is dumb, and then he just keeps escalating it and escalating it and escalating it, and it's so good. It gets so intense out of nowhere. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I remember when the movie came out, you were telling me to watch it, and unfortunately I didn't have time. But you were saying that guy should have gotten nominated for Best Supporting Actor just for that scene, and I agree. Like it's it's so good because I knew it was coming from like the trailers and from the poster, obviously. But
and you see him like in art exhibits, just like kind of snarling at you.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, audience, if you haven't seen this movie, there is nothing that can prepare you for how crazy it is. And like I think it is interesting in the movie too, because it's an actual performance art piece that does what it wants. Like it transcends and becomes something greater than what it is, and brings a lot of people's meaning to it. And also it's a great summary of the entire movie. Even the dining room itself is a kind of square. I love the character of the wild animal man. Like, he's like, I find myself like, not just like, I had to rewind and actually rewatch the scene because it was just so good. But like I agree. Like you're in the audience when it happens, and it feels really intense, and you feel the suspense and the tension. But like the second time watching it, I'm like, the second time just in a row, I was like trying to think like, what is this guy thinking? Like, what is like as a performer, like what are you doing, man? What are you doing? And I think he's calling them out for being bystanders and for being like, for not doing anything about this disruption. and not stopping him. He's like,
Yeah.
how he's literally asking them, do I have to rape someone for you to stop me? And it's brilliant. A brilliantly directed scene. I wonder what happened to him after.
Yeah, it's implied that they just beat him to death, and I don't doubt it. I think you could call that canon because you don't see him again.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's an insane scene. Did you have any more that you wanted to mention?
None that can top that one, for sure. I do like the cheerleader scene.
I agree. I think that's the best scene. And in terms of the cheerleader scene, I also like the one that follows where the coach is like talking to him, and like there's also in the square they're on the dance mat or whatever. The whole movie takes place in square rooms, so like they kind of hit it on the head. But when the coach is just like, hey, like don't cry, like you're part of a team, you did your part for the team, like instead of blaming yourself, use that energy to like get better and further the group. And like that's what the square is. Like that's what you need to focus on. Plus like the movie has like some racial undertones. Like the PR marketing makes sure it's like a white, blonde hair, blue-eyed baby. There's a lot of like somewhat racial themes that they touch on. So the fact that like the coach is black and it's a bunch of like white kids and like he's like actually bringing them together and doing what we want to do is fucking fantastic. My second favorite scene though is probably the apartment scene, and cutting between the intern and the Tesla and just holding on that for so long. And the sound design in that is amazing. It's probably the best sound design in the movie. When he's just sitting alone in the Tesla of justice. It's it's a crazy intense scene, and it makes you like really stop and be like, okay, these people are completely in the wrong, like through and through. Like everything that they do is pretty much wrong. And I also really like the reveal that he's a dad. I agree. I think that the fatherhood aspect of the movie's a bit half-baked, and kind of touched on better in other scenes of the movie. But the like knocking on the door, you're like, fuck, dude, this guy's about to get murdered. Christian is onion rings. And then it's just kids that come through and they're like, why didn't you answer the door? You're like, oh, because he's a shitbag. It's just great. I love that reveal too.
Yeah.
But besides that, we pretty much touched on all my favorites.
Cool.
The statue, the homeless person wanting no onions, the Tourette scene, as darkly funny that is pretty great too. There's a lot of great individual scenes in this. I just think that some of them don't, like the structure of it and stringing them together is kind of the problem. But other than that, it's a great movie. I'll probably rewatch it despite how uncomfortable it makes me feel. I like it a lot.
I agree. Great pick.
Yeah, thank you. If you want to watch either of these movies, you can. Good news, they exist. Square is on HBO Max and Parasite is on Hulu. So both pretty accessible. HBO Max, not everybody might have. Hulu, I feel like a lot of people have. It's almost like Netflix at this point, where like somebody knows somebody that steals their password and stuff. Both very much worth a watch. I think this was one of our better double features in terms of theme that we've had in a bit. Whether or not you double feature them, because it's like 5 hours of cinema almost. So pace yourselves, friends. But fun episode. Good topic. I like it.
Hell yeah. Alrighty, audience. You can follow the Jaredcast on all the socials. Follow us on all the podcast streaming platforms and on YouTube as well. But yeah, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye.